with that, another set of firsts. We're gonna get started on our second set tonight with Tim. At first, ran into Tim at Garage Brew here in Cincinnati with his 1920s Douglas, which is just an extraordinary machine. And so please welcome Tim to the stage. He's going to tell us his firsts.
Yeah.
Test, test. Okay. There we go. Well, after all that, I'm kind of scared to ride. So, a few adjustments here. There we go. So I have a story of gratitude tonight. So it all started many moons ago, and I was a single, lonely motorcyclist. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to do something about it. And so first thing I did is started researching. So it turns out that nowadays about 20% of motorcyclists are female. But back when I was looking, it was a lot less than that. But that doesn't tell you the whole numbers. That doesn't really paint the whole situation that I was in here. Because a little more Googling, you find out that they say 8% of American households have a motorcycle. So households, what does that mean, households? Well, you have to subtract from that the 78% of people, or 72% of people that are married. Then the people that are dating, you have to subtract from that. And then you have to subtract the people that aren't interested in someone who identifies as a regular guy. And then you have to subtract the people that keep putting the toilet paper roll on the wrong way. Things aren't looking good. So Google couldn't give me a straight answer after I put all of that in, but it started showing me ads for inflatable dogs. So I was going to be rough and difficult. So decided to approach this scientifically, and there's a website, I think it's still around, called Match.com. So I went to Match, and they ask you like 100 questions, and they promise after they take a huge chunk of your Visa card to run an algorithm and a Ouija board and chicken livers or something, and they will find the match for you based on all these many different things and qualities that you plugged in. So I put in my Visa card and I put down my 100 different things that about me that were reasonably correct, and this came up. I was smitten. I couldn't believe it. My knees were weak. I mean, just look. Fuel injection, ABS. Look at these engine guards. And apparently the panniers have a wife in them. So this is Connie. So I went through Connie's Match profile, and sure enough, 99 out of 100 things matched up. There's one thing though. She said, if you're going to contact me, you must love, whoops. She said you must, well, before I get to that, one of the things on her profile is that she started writing before I did. She started writing very, very young. Not quite that young. She started writing when she was 10 years old. I didn't start till I was 13. She's a writer longer than I was. This is definitely someone I wanted to meet. But she said you must love dogs in order to contact her. Well, I'm a cat guy. Four cats at home. So I had to fudge a little bit. I mean, I like Snoopy, right? You know. So hopefully you'll forgive me for lying to my future wife on Match to meet her. And by the end of this, maybe you'll forgive me. So we got together, and she had 3 dogs. I had Taylor and Harley and Bourbon here. It wasn't too long after we got together that Taylor passed away. This is a good picture because The costumes actually are pretty representative of the dogs. Harley is like a monk, and Bourbon there is in a devil outfit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Harley was the most empathetic dog I've ever met in my entire life. He was a therapy dog. And every weekend we'd go to hospice and visit people. And he always knew exactly how to approach them and what they wanted. And it was just mind-boggling. He had some kind of, his whole brain must have been dedicated to empathy. It was just incredible. And even when he was an old dog, and he could barely walk, but still at Christmas Eve we'd take him to the hospice, and he got as much out of that as anyone. Harley was a great dog. Bourbon was the exact opposite.
Bad dog. Bad dog.
So Bourbon had something that's known as fear aggression. And I don't know if you're familiar with dogs, some of you maybe, some not. But fear aggression is a serious issue. It's very difficult to deal with. And he was a rescue from the Hurricane Katrina. And because of his fear aggression, he was going to be put down. And my wife rescued him. And we found out from the rescue people that when they got him from New Orleans, he was a bait dog. He was rescued from an abandoned dog fighting ring. And he was a bait dog. And a bait dog is a dog where they sick the actual fighting dogs on to train them. And we assume that's where the fear aggression came from. So this is quite a problem because Bourbon and I, well, we're not getting along. Not getting along very well at all. So we needed to solve that problem. And we solved that because Bourbon was part cattle dog.
Yeah.
Cattle dogs need a job. I know there's a cattle dog owner there, and you know what I'm talking about. To make a cattle dog happy, to get rid of their problems, give them a job. So that's what we did. Our job full time was to give Bourbon jobs. So we started out with agility. We went to a trainer in town called John Smith who specializes in these difficult dogs. And after working with him, finally Bourbon is happy. And we're happy that Bourbon is happy. Yay. Still have another problem. We've got all these motorcycles, we've got all these dogs. But every time we go on a ride, we can't go very far, very long, because we have to go back and walk the dogs, water the dogs, feed the dogs, dog something. So dogs was interfering with the motorcycle life. And that's a serious problem. So we needed a solution to this problem. And that came in Mid-Ohio Vintage Motorcycle Day. I found a Honda C70, Trail 70 actually, with a home-built wooden sidecar. Brought it home to Bourbon, put Bourbon in it without it running and just let him sit in it for a while. He got used to it. Then we pushed it around without the motor running. So he could get used to it moving around. Then we started up the motor, started driving around in the yard. So this is my first sidecar. And also Bourbon's first sidecar. It's the first thing, the graphic representation. So at first he wasn't so sure about what was going on, but he then took to it and he loved it. Now, after a little while, we finally got to the point where we could ride around at the local county airport, and he was comfortable and I was comfortable with it. Felt it was going pretty well, and we needed to move on to our next level. Started going down just the little side streets. So the very next year, at Mid-Ohio Vintage Motorcycle Days, Bourbon and I bought our first real sidecar roadworthy rig. And there's the first. So I taught myself, and Bourbon taught himself, and we taught each other how to ride sidecar together. And we were on the road, and we're having fun. But remember, we still have another dog at home, and Connie. So Connie got her first sidecar rig, and Harley learned how to ride sidecar with her. And that was their first sidecar. Yeah. So now, we're riding all the time. It was great. Everything was wonderful. We had dogs, we had motorcycles, we were riding. This was just absolutely phenomenal. We were going everywhere together. So we're riding, we're going to the parks, We're going out to the winery, going out to the Christmas rain dog parade and Mount Adams together. It was just dogs and motorcycles all day long, 24/7, 365. Sadly, Harley passed away. So then it was the three of us. It was Connie, myself, and Bourbon riding sidecar. And we started to go farther. We decided to take trips now out of state. We decided to go on vacations with Bourbon and the sidecar. Now, Bourbon was Paw Patrol before it was cool, because remember I mentioned there was a working dog? So Bourbon took to riding a sidecar very much differently than any other dog I've known before or since, because for him it was serious. It was a job. It was a job that had to be done every day. So he took it very seriously. It was hell to pay if we did not ride. He blamed us for bad weather and the rain. One time, Connie and I took the sidecar to a drive-in movie in Amelia, the drive-in theater. And when we came back, we found that he heard us drive away in his sidecar, and he shredded his kennel and was loose in the backyard. He was mad. Took his sidecar out. Even in the winter, he didn't care. He had to ride, he had to go on patrol, he had to go on his routes and make sure things were whatever safe or whatever he needed to do during his patrols. So we started doing some benefit stuff. This is right up the street here, north side, 4th of July parade. We did some events with some of the other charity events. There's a different rides here, the Mods and Rockers ride. One day, folks that ran a digital motorcycle magazine took this picture at the end of a benefit ride, and then they said they wanted to come do a story on Bourbon. I said, sure. So they came out to the shop. It was winter, but they came out to the shop and they did our first magazine article for Bourbon called Bourbon and BMWs. And first. And they came out to the shop and they hung out with Bourbon and heard his stories and got to see the bikes. So Connie and I decided that we wanted to help other people because this has made such a difference in our life. So we wrote a guide to how to hook up your motorcycle and make it safe for your dog, how to train your dog safely to ride a motorcycle and sidecar, and not how to teach people how to ride sidecar, but to give them the resources that they needed to know so they knew what they're up against when buying a sidecar. And so we wrote Dogs Ride, and this was our first self-published book for Connie and myself. This attracted the attention of some folks that made movies. And we were contacted by the folks that made documentary films, movies, and they were making a movie called Sit, Stay, Ride. It was only rescue dogs that ride all around the United States and Canada. And so they came out and they spent the whole weekend with us, and it ended up being like 5 minutes worth of footage, but I'm told that's how it goes with footage and documentaries and movies. And so we got our first movie. Sit, Stay, Ride, so Bourbon and Connie and I believe you can still stream it. So, back to riding. Riding all the time, riding every day. Got to get some riding in, because it's the job. We can take this serious. Riding out of state, going on vacation for weeks at a time. Now that Bourbon had a little notoriety, we also started going to some different animal places to raise awareness and try and get donations in for some of the local animal adoption centers. More vacations. Poor Bourbon had to be in the sidecar with all the supplies, but he loved it. It was just another job he had to do, is to take care of the supplies. More events. This one here at the Comet, just down the street. Ferries, very progressive. Then everything changed. So Connie, being quite a dog trainer, she taught Bourbon I call it a trick, but it was, it's a skill, to open his mouth so she could check for tartar and actually use this little rubber thing to clean his teeth. And when we were camping, she noticed something wrong with his tongue. She noticed a little bump on his tongue. And that turned out to be canine oral melanoma. Canine oral melanoma is a death sentence. The average lifespan, once diagnosed, is about 6 months. About the longest known living dog was about 8 to 9 months. So this was crushing for all of us. Bourbon was still fairly young. Would have had a lot of time left before him. And the folks at MedVet told us that they could enroll us in an experimental trial of a new drug, an immunotherapy for canine melanoma. That combined with radiation therapy might give us a chance. They couldn't guarantee anything because, again, no dogs really ever live more than about a year with this disease, and this is a completely untested trial. That's why it's a trial, right? So we were very interested. But each treatment was $1,200, not including the radiation, just for the immunotherapy was $1,200. And to get into the program, you had to start with 7 doses just to start the program. We didn't have that kind of money. So Connie's sister suggested that we do a GoFundMe, and we did. And I know a lot of people in this room contributed to that GoFundMe, and thank you very much. But it didn't raise enough money. It didn't even get halfway to the amount of money that we needed for the treatments that we needed for Bourbon. So remember those documentary people? They heard about Bourbon's plight. And they sent out to everyone on their mailing address that had rented, viewed, or streamed the movie a story about Bourbon and a link to his GoFundMe page. And they saved my dog. We got 40 funders. The treatment was worse than we had known. We might not have gone through with it if we realized what it was going to be like. We had no way of telling Bourbon that this pain that we were putting him through, was for him. We couldn't communicate that to him. The radiation completely scarred his entire neck and thoracic region. We had to feed him for more than a week with a tube. And he just didn't understand why we were doing this to him. It was heartbreaking for everyone. Slowly he did start to get better. And it took months, but he started to revive. We got to the point where he was able to eat and drink on his own, and he immediately wanted to do his job. So I'd ride him up and down the street slow as he recovered so he could do his job. And amazingly, that seemed to make a significant difference in his attitude and his recovery. 6 months after the treatment ended, he went in and they scanned him entirely and found no evidence of cancer. To our knowledge, he is the longest living dog to have ever survived canine oral melanoma. So here we are a year later, and you can see his fur is growing back on his neck, and he is happier than ever and working every day doing his patrol.
Yeah.
So we started going on vacations again, and we made up a little term called the C card. C card means cancer card, because Bourbon would play that. So he got whatever he wanted after that. So when we went to a hotel that allowed dogs while we were on vacation, he got to go up and be on the bed. And he played that C card, but he was pretty good about it. But he had a pretty pampered life after that. We'd been through a lot together. And he was back riding. And he continued riding and enjoying and loving every minute of it. Bourbon lived to 14 and a half years. And Bourbon's the first dog I ever loved. So I stand here grateful. Grateful that motorcycles helped me find my wife. Grateful that motorcycles helped me find the dog that I love. Grateful that motorcycles and the motorcycle community saved my dog's life. And I'm grateful to be here tonight to have told you this story. Thank you very much.
So you never know where a first is going to take you, right? Isn't that amazing? How many of you travel with your own pet? How many of you, so just one hand up there, I think. And you don't travel on the motorcycle yet?
No, not yet.
Not yet. I know it's a huge challenge, and it's completely rewarding when we get the chance to share this passion that we have with our other passion, our furry passion. And so that was amazing. Thank you.